You're listening to the Flickcast, a podcast about stuff nerds love. I am Chris Ulrich, and joining me, of course, my good friend and co-host, Joe Dilworth. Joe, Merry Christmas. How are you?
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and happy freedom from the Sarlacc pit. That's all I got to say.
There you go. Yes, he crawled. Oh, sorry. Spoilers. If you didn't know what happened,
spoilers.
Should have had a spoiler alert at the beginning of this episode. But yes, boba-fett is back, baby. Whether you wanted him or not, he's back. Yes, we had Christmas happen, and by the time people hear this, New Year's would have happened. So Happy New Year to everyone. And it's been an interesting couple of weeks. A lot of cool stuff ended. A lot of stuff started, and some movies came out, and we're going to talk about all that stuff and all that, all those fun things. But on this episode, we're going to mostly concern ourselves with the finale of Hawkeye, and maybe a little bit about The Matrix, maybe a little bit about Spider-Man, and maybe a little bit about the resurrection of Boba Fett, because that should not be a spoiler, because they made a show about Boba Fett, so obviously he's still alive.
It should just have been 8 episodes of him in the Sarlacc pit.
That would have been funny, yeah. So we should start with Hawkeye probably, because
Sure. Yep.
Typically we just banter on for hours, and these episodes are like an hour or 2 hours long, which is way too long for a podcast, let's be honest. But we try our best, folks. But there's a lot of stuff. So Hawkeye ended with a bang, I guess you could say. I really enjoyed the ending, although I am confused about what they're going to do about Wilson Fisk. Not confused.
We didn't see a body. We did not see a body.
That's right. And we should say spoilers for Hawkeye if you haven't watched Hawkeye yet.
Spoilers, like, for everything we talk about. Yeah. Let's just get that out of the way.
But by the way, if Hawkeye ended like 2 weeks ago, guys, where have you been?
Right. If you haven't watched
get on it. If you're not a true nerd, you're not a true fan.
You're not a true fan.
Watch Hawkeye. Yes. So anyway, I like the ending. I love the fact that Clint and Kate are like pals, and it just they had the whole thing really hinged on whether their rapport was going to be good, and maybe it's just because Haley Steinfeld is such a great Steinfeld or Steinfeld anyway. Haley Steinfeld is such a great actress and actor, whatever you want to call it, and has such good chemistry with Clint. I think they just did such a great job together, and that really made the show. And we get some more stuff about Clint's wife, and we get all kinds of cool little Easter eggs, and of course, another big one, Wilson Fisk, Vincent D'Onofrio, now part of MCU canon. So that's pretty cool.
And the cool thing for me on that was it wasn't just a cameo to tie things up. He was pretty well involved in the whole episode, which was pretty great.
Yeah, I feel like, D'Onofrio said on Twitter that he's playing him as if he was the same person, which, it's just like a continuation of his character from the Netflix series, which is cool. But then I think they're trying to make the case that that's what really happened, but he was blipped away, so he's like trying to reinstall his power base or something.
Right.
So yeah, he's pretty aggressive and pretty tough, and rips a door off a car with no problem.
Well, he's a lot more stronger and powerful than he was in the Netflix series, for sure.
Well, he didn't. So. Maybe he was always that.
There was no slouch there.
Maybe he was already that strong, but I think they were fine on Netflix. We're trying to tone down all the quote unquote powers of everybody.
Yeah,
even Jessica Jones, who's much more powerful in the comics, it was not quite as powerful. Although, they did have her do a few superpowered things, but not much. Maybe that was a budget thing. It probably was, but apparently on Disney Plus, you can spend as much money as you want. So that's nice.
Oh yeah, apparently. Yeah.
So I was happy to see him, because I thought, as we talked about before, I thought he did a great job as Kingpin, and I'm happy to see him come back, and look forward to seeing more from him. Which, of course, ties into Spider-Man conversations, which, giant spoiler if you've never seen Spider-Man. But yes, there's more to it in that, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yes. Yeah. No, I like the fact, too, that D'Onofrio is talking about that he really enjoys the character and he wants to continue playing him. And, I know actors are going to say that to a certain extent because they like getting paychecks. But I think he's genuinely interested in the character and exploring him more. And the person that allegedly shot him, Maya, is getting her own series, and obviously there's more spaces to fill down the road, probably in other movies and other shows. So I would say, with the reception the character got in its return, and D'Onofrio's willingness to continue to play him, I don't think that's the last we've seen of the Kingpin.
It's not. And like you said, there's no body, so that was just teased, because that happens in the comics, and we know that Kingpin survives. He just loses an eye, if I remember correctly, or gets an eye problem. But yeah, like you said, She's going to have her own show, and he can show up back in that show for revenge. And it'll be cool. But I mean, maybe he'll show up in a movie too. I think they're maybe setting the stage for more things with him for sure. I would like to see. I mean, I guess the question is, will they bring back Punisher? Will they bring back more of the Netflix characters?
Right.
Although I don't know if Punisher works. I don't know if Punisher works as a movie. It might work as another show, but maybe not. Maybe not in these times. I don't know if it would work, but
yes,
I don't know.
Exactly.
But yeah, I just thought Hawkeye was probably one of my favorite MCU shows that are on Disney Plus. That and WandaVision, I think, are probably my top ones so far.
Yeah, it was just really well done, and it was. You're right. It all hinged on the chemistry between Haley Steinfeld and Jeremy Renner, and it was just perfect. And some of the deadpan humor in it was just well done. I mean,
yeah,
people
forget that Renner's actually funny. I think because he's such a stoic kind of character in most things, but he's funny, and he's probably like a joker in real life from every interviews and stuff you see. He's kind of a happy-go-lucky guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, they worked well together, and of course, not Frances Pugh. What's her face? You know what I'm talking about, Yelena.
Yes,
I can't remember her name. Wow, Florence Pugh, not Frances. Jeez.
Florence Pugh.
Come on, Chris.
Yes.
You should know better.
Well, that was kind of the funny thing. Even I felt like even more so than the Black Widow movie, this was a good, we finally got the send off in Endgame, or that we should have gotten in Endgame for such a integral character to the Avengers, Natasha, and I felt like this was like kind of her epilogue as well, even though she physically wasn't in the show. They just did a really good job of tying off that part of the story and kind of allowing Yelena to continue forward. So that was great. The scenes between her and Clint, I thought, were really great.
No, you're right. They definitely went to a lot of trouble to keep bringing up Natasha and letting Clint have some more closure about her death, and Yelena to have closure, which she never had because she was blipped away during the whole thing. And then it was a lot about Natasha, especially one of the biggest characters in the show wasn't even in the show because she was dead, obviously. But it was. I thought that was great. But I always say it's a multiverse. I suppose Natasha can exist somewhere else. But
it's all comic books; they can all come back.
Exactly. But yeah, she was good. I don't know that there was anything about, because a lot of times, as you know, with you as well, I'm sure there's like, this is a great show except for this or this or this. But I don't know if there was that many. For me, there weren't that many in this. I actually look forward to these episodes, and I really enjoyed the show. And I was actually disappointed and sad, I guess, when it was over. And hopefully we'll get more. I don't know if we ever will, but hopefully we will get more. Well, we'll definitely get more with Kate and Yelena probably, but maybe we won't see Jeremy Renner as Clint Barton ever again. But who knows?
I think my only negative and my only wish for the show is we would have got more with Lucky the Pizza Dog, because Pizza Dog is awesome.
Pizza Dog was cool, and the LARPers grew on me.
That was surprising.
I don't think she ever got her bag back though, but that's okay.
Oh, yeah, you might be right.
Maybe that happened behind, in after the credits rolled, she got her bag back. So the Avengers live, and we got to see more about Mrs. Barton too. So that was pretty exciting.
Well, and I feel like they gave us a complete story, but there was enough threads that if this seems to be well received, we should do some more. That they could do more with Laura Barton, definitely with Kate Bishop. So it was, obviously with Kingpin and Maya, which we'll get to see in their own series. But yeah, I think it was one of those great complete stories. But again, like real life, things never really tie off completely neatly. But I want to see. I would like to see some sort of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. revival and get into Laura and have some of the people from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show up. But that's never going to happen. But, hey, why not?
No,
wish for the stars.
It's never going to happen. I don't feel like Laura's going to come out of retirement necessarily unless she's forced to. But it's just interesting to me that was her watch, and it seems kind of gaudy for her. But maybe that was just her Mockingbird S.H.I.E.L.D. watch or something.
Right.
But she was obviously some kind of S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, which is why she was so accepting of Clint's, activities. Never worried about where he was or anything. So she totally believed in him, man, which is what you want.
Well, I like that aspect of it too. It's like not only did she know everything about him, even the darkest stuff, but she was someone he could, as he did, call up and say, "I'm going to have to do this," and she's like, "Hey, do what you got to do." I don't judge, and so it was just, I don't know. I like the way that was portrayed instead of like a Hallmark channel kind of marriage where it's like, oh my God, it's in jeopardy. It's like, no, that's the part that's rock solid about this, and that's why he can be who he is, because he's got that. So I thought that was really cool.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I can't think of any other Avenger that really had that, right? They didn't have that support.
Right.
Like Tony didn't have it, Banner didn't have it, no, none of them had it. Thor had nobody. All of his family got killed, basically.
Right.
And his brother tried to murder, whatever. And so, but Clint, who was the least, super powered person of all of them, basically, except for Natasha, was basically the strongest in a way, because he had that kind of support and, dare I say it, love in his life. Yes. And that's why he, ultimately, even though he's done bad things, he's ultimately redeemed, I think, and just can go on with his life and try to make amends. But I don't know. I mean, I've seen people do a lot of things, when they're grieving, but murdering a bunch of people, I don't know, maybe. But
well, and it was cool because in the
they were all
Avengers
bad.
movie, in the Avengers movie, they built up this. There was some kind of relationship, obviously a past with Clint and Natasha. Now we know why they both saw Budapest very differently, or Budapest very differently.
Right.
But it was like they made them best friends. It wasn't like some kind of romantic thing. It's like, no, he's got a family and she's Auntie Nat. And it's like that was just kind of cool because it was just written differently. Normally it would be like, oh,
they hooked up.
Well, they won't they?
Yeah, they hooked up that one time.
Right.
And they realized they were better off friends. Well, like Fury says, and she's comfortable with everything. So maybe, I don't know. Yes. I don't know. I don't know if they ever hooked up. I doubt it, but it doesn't. I don't think it really matters. It's nice to see a sort of a friendship portrayed in the, in any kind of popular thing. It's like men and women don't have to fuck. It's just they can be friends.
They can be best friends.
They can be best friends and supportive of each other. And women can be supportive of each other. We can all come together as a team, which is what happens in Hawkeye. It's like they become a team, and they have their other support team of the LARPers, and they have,
I definitely think we need more, whether it's a movie or preferably a longer form TV series of Kate and Yelena teaming up, because they were pretty great together.
I think you'll see that, and maybe you'll see that in the Kingpin show, which will. I feel like there's going to be a Kingpin series. I feel like there has to be. Almost, I think people would be interested in that, and you can bring back any character you want. I mean, maybe you'll get, get Daredevil in it, and you'll get. I mean, whatever they're going to do, they're going to maybe do another Daredevil show, a Daredevil, Kingpin, street level heroes kind of Marvel MCU stuff. I think that. I don't know if you'll get a Daredevil feature, although again, we should talk about Charlie Cox in a second, but maybe you will.
I would. Yeah, I would see, because I mean, for the longest time, and I'm not sure they're coded under that anymore, but they had like the group of characters that ended up being in the Netflix series were kind of in the comics under their own
Defenders
imprint. Dark. Well, they were like the dark something. Dark Knights, I want to say, but it was some kind of label where they kind of interconnected and all this kind of stuff, and then they were part of the New Avengers and stuff like that.
They were the Defenders too, because they did the Defenders team.
Well, all those characters weren't necessarily in the Defenders at any one point, but
that's
in the comics,
that's the characters they had the rights to,
right? So. But they did kind of keep them in their own corner of the Marvel universe, because they were all in New York. They were all kind of, even though Spider-Man interacted, they were all kind of the street level characters. So their comics kind of intertwined quite a bit. So having some kind of like, I forget, I want to say Dark Knights, but I don't think that was the imprint, but having some kind of series that was labeled as that, then you could have, focus on the Kingpin, people stopping him, but then you can have like Daredevil for a season or a few episodes, and, Luke Cage show up, you could have any of those guys and introduce some others that haven't been seen before. So yeah, I would totally watch that, and I'm sure a lot of people would.
Yeah, so. I think Daredevil is a popular character, and there was a movie, obviously. Already, so maybe they'll do another one of that. But I don't know if it'll be a standalone film. Maybe it will. I think it's with Disney Plus being so popular, it's more likely that we'll see either a Daredevil show with Kingpin and with some other Defenders. I'm just going to keep calling them Defenders, but yeah, you're right. It was something else like Dark Avengers. I don't even remember, but something like that. The Nighttime Avengers. It's the Avengers After Dark.
Whoa, that's a totally different
show. Yeah. I think we'll see that, and I think we'll see, luckily, okay, this is a major spoilers for Spider-Man. If you haven't seen Spider-Man No Way Home, which you probably have if you're listening, but if you haven't,
you should if you're a real fan, you have.
If you're a true fan, yeah. If you should fast forward or pause, but Charlie Cox does appear as Matt Murdock in Spider-Man No Way Home. So that was pretty darn cool. And I would say of the reveals, because the others were sort of like, oh, that's happening because we already kind of knew that. But that was, I think, at least to me, was the most surprising thing, because that seemed the least likely to happen, right?
Yeah.
Except what Kevin Feige said, oh, Charlie Cox is our Daredevil, blah, blah, blah. So, duh.
Yeah, but that was having him show up in a lawyer capacity and not in costume, but yet have at least a little bit to show his powers, which was great. It's like, how did you do that? I'm a really good lawyer.
Yeah, he was great. But you'll notice in that scene that not only did Matt catch the brick, but Spidey had his hand up too, who was also going to catch it. But Matt actually caught it first, which I thought was interesting. But I was thrilled to see Charlie Cox. I thought he did such a great job as Daredevil and as Matt Murdock in the Netflix show, and we've talked about that many times. But I'm really happy for him, and happy that that stuff was taken seriously, because they put in the work for that one. I would say except for season 1 of Jessica Jones, which was also excellent, I would say that was the best Netflix show, Daredevil, for sure.
Oh, by far.
And it made me more interested in Daredevil, because Daredevil was not a character that I was, I wasn't like not a fan, but I wasn't like, oh, I had to read all the Daredevil comics. So the man without fear, whatever. Yes. But yeah, it was very cool to see that. And the whole movie was just the biggest fan service I think that I've ever seen, except maybe Endgame.
Oh, no, I agree. And the cool thing was, I didn't care, because it was just really well done.
No,
really cool.
It was great, and I can see why it was appealing to all the other Spider-Men who came, and to the bad guys who came back, and I can see why they all did it. They did, the only kind of question mark for me was always like, wow, why would Jamie Foxx do it? He's got an Oscar. He doesn't really need to do it, but I think he just had enough to do. And maybe talking about, I thought you'd be black, like, oh, there must be a black Spider-Man somewhere.
Right. Miles Morales.
Right. So
let's have him now.
So that's probably how they convinced Jamie Foxx, like, well, you can help introduce the idea of Miles Morales into the multiverse. And I'm like, well, maybe you haven't seen this animated Spider-Man film. But
yeah, exactly. This got a sequel, 2 sequels coming up.
Which is also an amazing movie. It dealt with the multiverse probably better than you will, but
right.
But yeah, it was just really good. I love the twists, and I loved obviously we're talking about Spider-Man No Way Home now, but I loved Willem Dafoe, awesome. His portrayal. I mean, there was definitely some bummers, and I was wrong about I had predicted that it was happy, but I was wrong, and it turned out to be, Aunt May. But that was a catalyst.
Yeah,
that was actually a really good. I mean, I hate to say it, but that was really a good catalyst, because it had helped sort of give the 3 Spider-Men something that sort of bonded them together, because they've all faced huge loss.
Yeah, exactly.
Because really, Tom Holland's character, except for Tony Stark, really hadn't experienced like deep loss in his life.
Yeah, and there was never any mention of Uncle Ben dying or anything like that. So he kind of needed that here, and unfortunately, it resulted in Aunt May. But I don't know. I really liked it. I liked the whole concept of I'm not going to fight these guys. I'm going to help them get better. It's like, well, that's kind of cool. And having them work with him on it. I'm sort of a scientist myself.
Yeah, he says that in the Raimi version too, which I thought was cool.
Yes, exactly.
I'm a bit of a scientist myself.
But having, even though he has a psychosis that, took over, but he's remorseful for it. I don't know. It was a different take, instead of like, I'm just going to beat all these guys and send them back where they're coming from. There was an extra layer there that was like, no, I can help them. Obviously he had a price to pay for that, but it was still
it definitely humanized him more, and it also gave, I think it gave the other characters, the other Spider-Man characters, a pretty good arc, because you can see that there'd been development in their lives. Like Andrew Garfield's character was definitely, he was angry. He said, I stopped pulling my punches and all that stuff. You could see he's gone through some shit, because he blamed
Yes.
himself for Gwen's death. And I mean, it was kind of his fault. He's
It
he's a
was.
scientist. He should know that thing will, anyway.
Yeah.
So he gets redeemed a little bit, which I thought was a great beat, and a great little bit for him. And then Tobey Maguire's character is like, well, you know what, man, it's not all bad. MJ and I finally worked it out. It just took a long time, and that's almost like a throwaway in a way. In that whole scene when they're trying to develop the antidotes in the high school science lab, which I thought was amazing.
Yes.
It's just like, yeah, it worked out. It's not as bad as you think. Things are going to get better. And him trying to give the pep talk to Andrew Garfield's character, it's like, you are amazing. Just say it. I mean, you feel like he's like the older mentor of Spider-Man, which I thought was really cool. They've definitely given some thought into how will these guys evolve after those movies. And obviously they've lived a life after the Raimi films or the other films they were in. And it's just, that to me was one of the brilliant things about it. They were real. I don't want to say real people, because obviously they're not real people, but you can tell that was a priority. It's like, how have these guys changed, and how can they help Tom Holland's Spider-Man realize his true potential and not cross that line into revenge porn or whatever.
Well, and I think that's one of the strengths of the MCU. It's like they very easily could have just like, hey, look, it's the previous two guys, and they're like, okay, we got to go fight the bad guys now. But they took the time to actually give them story beats and actually resolve stuff from movies that don't even tie in necessarily to the MCU, but they made them, like you said, real characters instead of just, oh, look, kids, it's the previous guys.
And then, of course, Aunt May's line about great power, and
yes,
with it,
yes.
I remember that's the original line from the comics. That
yes,
not
power comes
not what Uncle Ben says in the Raimi films isn't exactly the line, but that was an interesting thing, because they always talk like Marvel's big on absolute points in time or whatever. So I feel like that was an absolute point, because Aunt May had to die to get him on his journey to where he's going to be as Spider-Man and as a human being too. And I mean, it's tragic as it is, it had to happen.
And then, of course, the big sacrifice at the end, which I thought was, again, speaks a lot to the character of Peter Parker. And, even with like presenting him in other movies, Doctor Strange, I'm talking about now, as being kind of this arrogant asshole, I thought his interactions with Peter in this were pretty great, and especially that end scene, because Peter comes up with the solution. Can you make everybody forget me? Will that solve this? And he's like, yeah, but we're not gonna do that. And Peter's like, do it. And it just, I don't know, their dialogue there, and it's like, yeah, Strange, you are a big softie, even though you try to pretend you're not. So,
well, I think he is. I think he's a realist, though. I mean, he knows. That's what I think is great about Doctor Strange as a character, is that he's a scientist and a doctor, so he knows the idea of life and death. He knows that death is real and is a possibility. So he's practical. He's like, you know what? I'm a practical person, and he's never had kids. He's not a kid person, obviously. And yes, he helped save. He and Spider-Man saved the world together, so that's why he gave him the time of day in the first place. But But I think he was impressed that, that Peter came up with this idea, and he's like, it will solve the problem, but I don't think you should do that. I think he was trying to help him. I think he was generally trying to help him the entire time. It's just,
absolutely.
Shit went sideways, and it just, but he was, I think, finally realized that he's not necessarily you're not just a kid anymore. You're an adult now, and you're making an adult kind of grown up decision that you're sacrificing a lot to save a lot of people. But the great thing about it is that at the end, when he's at the the malt shop or whatever, the coffee shop, she's still wearing her little necklace from the other movies. So there's something in her mind that is still, I mean, he's not totally forgotten, right? Or there's some feeling that she has, and they have a moment in that scene where obviously he doesn't tell her, I'm Peter Parker and I love you. But when he finally,
but she's looking at him, and she's
when he finally does tell her that he loves her, that will bring it all back, I bet you. So whether there's another Spider-Man film or what happens, but they'll get back together somehow. He just has to be patient, and he just has to be mature and do the adult thing. And sometimes, like in There's that line in the Raimi Spider-Man 2 where he's talking to Doc Ock. It's like, sometimes we have to be steady, give up the things we want, right? To do the right thing.
Right.
And
right.
so, and they bring that point in history in the movie, they bring that back several times, because that's the point where Doc Ock goes into the time, whatever, and comes into our world right at that moment when they're having that scene, when he's telling him that dialogue. Right. And so that's obviously an important part. So the point is, right, that you have to give up things that you love for the greater good. And kids don't do that, but grown-ups do that.
I think Stephen Strange is the type of person that he'll make the hard choice. He'll do it. It's like, yeah, sure, I'll make everyone forget you, but he's not like an uncaring bastard. He's like, you shouldn't do this. I mean, it was the same thing with like in Endgame. There's only one way we do this.
Yeah, I don't think he was thrilled about having to sacrifice Tony either, but.
No, because the look he gave him, he's just like, it was almost like, I'm sorry kind of look.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but you're fucked.
But at the end of the day, he's still going to make the hard choice because it's the thing that has to be done.
Right.
He's
giving up the time stone in the first place was a hard choice.
Yeah. He's kind of the person you want to be in the position to make those choices, because when it comes down to it, he'll do it. But he isn't uncaring and unfeeling about it. I just think it's a very interesting character in the way he's written.
I think they'll explore that more in Multiverse of Madness too, because that was one of the post-credit scenes in Spider-Man where
the trailer
Mordo shows up again. I'm so happy about that.
Well, and also at the very end of the trailer, I think
Dark Strange,
our theories from What If are going to pay off. That is the Dark Strange from What If.
It is, or it's someone similar to that, because again, there's multiverse. But yeah, it does look like that. But there's a couple of things in the trailer that I thought were pretty cool, although that's not Shimogura, so don't get excited. That's somebody else. But there's a lot of things in there that definitely, I think, tie in with the What If series. And of course, if you believe some of the rumors that Haley Atwell is going to be showing up and some other characters from that are going to show up. I mean, it is madness, right? It is multiverse. But Mordo's line about the most dangerous person or whatever is you, Steven, which is interesting, because he has to confront his evil self, basically.
So I don't think Wanda's going to be bad in this one, especially after that scene in the trailer where he's like going to her for help, and he's like, I'm not here about all that stuff that happened. I need your help. What do you know about
Westview or whatever?
Yeah. I don't know. I thought that was kind of cool.
She could still be bad though. I mean,
I don't think so. I mean, we got evil Doctor Strange. I think that's going to be the
bad thing. Maybe you're right. I mean, I guess we'll find out, but we will find out in February or March anyway. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. But yeah, that was an interesting post-credit sequence, and of course the Tom Hardy Venom. Oops, I left some of my essence on the bar, and
that part I thought was weird, because you went to all the trouble at the end of the Venom movie, previous one, to have him transported to this universe, and then you're just going to get rid of him again, but leave a little bit. It's like, just have him stay in the Marvel. I don't know.
He can't stay. He broke through, and then the spell took him back, man.
I know, but it was just like, it didn't. It's are you just hedging your bets?
Yeah, I think it's that. I think they're having their cake or whatever. It's like, we're going to keep Tom Hardy Venom in our realm, but here's a possibility that you can have him too. So I think they're going to keep it open, or someone else will get infected and someone else could be Venom in the MCU. It's fine.
It just felt like the whole movie, even that part, was like, well, we've enjoyed our time in the MCU and it might not continue, so let's wrap things up in case we don't continue our agreement, and we can both continue to do Marvel movies and we can continue to do Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, well, I think that was absolutely a deal point in the agreement.
But it sounds like, thankfully, from what they've been saying in interviews, they've reached some new deal. So the Spider-Man and various characters are staying in the MCU. So we'll see how that plays out.
Well,
later.
I mean, all it costs is money, right? So Disney's got plenty of money.
That's right.
But yeah,
Sony, as much as Marvel enjoys money, and this is like, even in a pandemic, this movie's making over $1 billion and is going to have apparently around a $600 million profit. Yeah. So it's
going okay.
That you don't go, nah, we're good, right?
We're done. We don't need to do that again.
Yeah,
I think that one of the reasons for that obviously is the word of mouth and the anticipation and the idea that this is a movie that gets people to see things in the theaters, because. It is. Yeah. It's a movie that should be experienced in a theater, I think, if you can. I mean, safely, of
Absolutely.
course. Yes. But yeah, there was so many reveals. Ned is a wizard, maybe. That was pretty cool.
Yes.
Maybe who knows if that'll
Hobgoblin. But
yeah, Hobgoblin. Yeah, exactly. That'll pay off. But I love we'll talk about this for another minute and then we got to move on probably. But I love the fact that there was like callbacks to the Raimi films and to the other Andrew Garfield films.
Yeah.
Like Tobey Maguire's back. He's like, oh, my back. Because that in Spider-Man 1 or 2, he falls off it's 2, I think, when he loses his powers. Or he can't do the web fluid. And the whole idea that the web fluid comes out of him and Andrew Garfield's like, that's so weird. He's like looking and staring at him and shit.
Yeah.
It's just funny. And they really did. I don't remember, other than maybe Endgame when Cap can use the hammer and then he says, finally, after 10 movies, Avengers Assemble. Right. Those were the two moments that I fucking loved. And then other than that, I think this was probably my favorite time when these guys just showed up. But also the Charlie Cox thing, still, I have to talk about that too again, was a really great moment too. But seeing these guys all together and seeing it that it's not a cameo, that it's actually they're part of the story, and they help the main character kind of grow. And they're obviously, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are both, they seem like cool guys too. It's like they're willing to do this. They're not the stars of these movies. They're just here to support Tom Holland, which I thought was cool. They got paid obviously, but I feel like they probably really enjoyed their time as Spider-Man and they enjoy, whatever. But I guess the question is, will we see them again in another movie? Maybe. I don't know.
Well, we could.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that kind of like what you're saying, that it wasn't just, and I said previously, it wasn't a glorified cameo. And I'm sure that was part of the pitch when they went to him. It's like, hey, we'd like you to be in this movie, but we're planning on you being in like half the movie and actually having some story points and wrapping up some stuff from your movies and things like that. So I'm sure it wasn't just
especially Andrew Garfield, who never really got another movie.
Yeah. Although there's rumors.
All I thought was a guy in a rhino suit.
Yeah. And there's no Avengers in either one of their universes either.
Was that a band? Yeah. That was kind of funny too. Yeah. There's no Avengers. That's interesting. They must come from,
So are there any other heroes in there?
I don't know.
Maybe they're it. So, but it makes you want to know more, right? Would you like to know more?
So you think an MCU series, a Disney Plus series about those characters, maybe? Who knows?
Totally. That would be cool. I would watch that.
I don't know. I don't know if it'll ever happen, because I think those characters worked best maybe in the context of supporting the new Spider-Man, and sort of the roles that they played were like perfect in a way for what they were trying to do with the character in the MCU. And so I don't know if you really want to do that again, but maybe this just gives the fans the closure they wanted, especially again for Andrew Garfield. I mean, Tobey Maguire got 3 movies. That was fine. But they were planning a 4th. It just didn't work out. And they were also planning a 3rd Spider-Man movie with Andrew Garfield, but that didn't work out either.
Right. Exactly.
So I think that this was a fitting send-off for both of those guys. And for all the villains too. I mean, they kind of got redeemed, right? Like Flint, Marco they all got healed, and
yes,
and Thomas Hayden Church came back, and everybody. And
there's 2 more Into the Spider-Verse sequels now that they've announced that the first one is part 1. So there's 2 more animated sequels. So honestly, both those characters could appear, voiced by Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, could appear in those 2, and even on the other side of that, they could, it's like, hey, this is doing really well. Maybe we should do a live action Into the Spider-Verse movie. They could do that too. So
I mean, they kind of did it already, really.
I know, and kind of to your point, I don't think you, again, not just going for a cameo. I don't think you have Matt Murdock show up at the beginning and then not pay that off later. Because I don't. Maybe they just went to Charlie and said, "Hey, since we also have the Kingpin showing up in the show, it would be cool if you could do this, which is around the same time." And he's probably like, "Yeah, all right," because he seems to love the character. But I wonder if part of it was like, "Here's what else we want to do with you," and he's like, "Yeah, I'm in."
Oh no, I'm sure we'll see more of him for sure.
Yeah.
You don't. I mean, like, I don't really know Charlie Cox, obviously, and maybe he just did it for fun. But I feel like the idea was, we got to have Vincent back. We're going to have you back, and we're going to sign a deal with you. I'm sure they signed a deal with him to do other things, TV and films too. The thing that was interesting is that Kingpin appeared in a Disney Plus show, but Daredevil appeared in a movie. That's different in a way. I know that seems subtle maybe to some people, but Charlie Cox is MCU canon, right?
Right.
Vincent D'Onofrio is Disney Plus MCU canon, which is different maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
Who knows? But the idea that they're back, I would love to see, like I said, Jessica Jones, I'd love to see her again.
Yes.
Everybody but Iron Fist, honestly. Although, you know what? Maybe
they could. MCU could redeem them. I think
maybe they could, but they'd get a lot of fucking. People would hate that idea. Except unless they were getting to see what's her face again too. Who's also in the Matrix, which we'll get to in a second.
I was going to say we got Colleen Wing. She got a high profile. Outing in the new Matrix movie. So it's like, hey, people know who she is. And, she got to say that she was cut from Star Wars because Rian Johnson didn't know her character was still alive. So, maybe now is her time to shine.
To shine, yeah. So anything else you want to say about Spider-Man? Or I guess we could talk about it again some other time, but it just...
we can get into it later. It was
very enjoyable. I'm very happy.
Again, there was nothing, kind of like Hawkeye, there wasn't anything for me to go, I didn't like this part. It was just like, this is just great the whole way through. It was a good ride.
It was, and you don't always get that, obviously. I was with it the entire time. I thought the development between the Spider-Man was great, and, they just gave everybody stuff to do. I mean, there was a couple of questions I had, like why we said, does Jamie Foxx look different? And I like the fact that Doc Ock became a hero, and they all kind of redeemed themselves in a way, and they all kind of got helped. And like you said, it was better that Tom Holland his character was like stopped before he could do anything worse, and like evolved without not without violence certainly, but he just was. He became the man that he needed to be, and this is the trauma he had to go through. And I did like the point where Tobey Maguire stops him from stabbing Green Goblin, and it's like the same scene from Spider-Man 2 again, where he's like, "This is heavy." I expected him to say that. This is really heavy.
And then he gets stabbed, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
It's not the first time I've been stabbed.
Yeah.
I don't think they would never going to kill him, because that would close the door to that. But also because they already had death.
True.
With Aunt May, so they're not going to do another,
double whammy.
It's just, I'm sure there was discussion about whether he should die, but he obviously doesn't die. He said it really hurts us. It's like, yeah, totally. So it's just, So he's not gonna die. But I don't think there was nothing really stand out to me that was a problem. It was all really well done and super enjoyable and wonderful fan service, and I'm very glad that it happened. So. As a true fan of the Marvel movies,
it's a true fan.
Yeah,
trademark.
I thought it was amazing. So I was less enamored with Matrix Resurrections, but that's okay. I will watch Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss in anything. It was great to see them back together. Spoilers for Matrix Resurrections if you haven't seen it. For me, it was like one of those situations where I know this was inevitability was as Agent Smith says, but I feel like they would have made another Matrix movie no matter what without Lana Wachowski.
Well, they even talk about that too, which is great. Yeah.
But my problem with that in particular, not that in particular, but with that part of it was like, it's so like, oh, we know it's bullshit. Haha, we're cool. So it's like almost too much in a way, and calling attention to it doesn't make it any better necessarily. But I don't remember who said it. I saw it on Twitter or something like that. The most realistic part of this movie is when Keanu Reeves' character wins a Game of the Year award and then tries to kill himself. I just thought that was funny. I don't know. Suicide's not funny. It's like that's not funny at all. But it's just it's just that kind of humor to me was funny at that moment, because he thought he could fly, right? And he probably could have actually at that moment. But anyway,
probably could have.
There was a lot of great. I think the thing about this movie that I could say is there was a lot of great potential, and not all of it was very well realized. I guess. Because the idea that he's locked in the Matrix again, taking the blue pills, and the whole idea of, it's all psychosis or whatever, that was really interesting to me, that whole idea. And then, and the doctor was sort of keeping him in and whatever. But it kind of was good at the beginning, a good setup, and then sort of a weak middle and then kind of a weak ending. Because it kind of like, oh, we can do anything we want. We're going to fly away together. And, I don't know. It didn't blow me away, but it wasn't terrible. I guess it was like, okay.
Okay.
Sorry, that was a lot. I apologize.
I agree with you to a certain extent and disagree with you on
How
something. So
dare you?
I know. How dare you question me?
I am the authority. I'm the law.
I am the law.
No, I figured you'd have a different idea. That's fine. That's good.
So I'm coming into this from. I loved the original Matrix trilogy. I know we've talked about, and a lot of people have the opinion that all we needed was the first movie, and it should have been left alone. And I get that. And I guess I'm coming at it from the point of view that everyone was like, well, the other two Matrix movies and this one didn't like blow my mind like the first one. I'm like, they don't need to. That was its own thing, and it gave us the world and the universe that they live in, and now we get to tell the story and enrich that and expand upon it. So I guess that's kind of my perspective. I didn't expect that every single Matrix movie had to be another like evolution forward in filmmaking and blow my mind. I was like, no, we did that in the first one. Anything else trying to do that is just retelling the first movie over again, and we don't need that. And
that's the most important thing. Bullet time.
Right. So I thought the original Matrix trilogy was great. I loved the whole complete story. I loved all three of the movies. And so I was like, man, yeah, we're going to see something new in this world and a continuation of this. And they kind of had me hooked from the trailers. And it was, I'll say this, it was, if you're going to make another Matrix movie, it's everything I wanted in a new Matrix movie that I didn't know that I wanted. I didn't want to see just like, well, no, you didn't save Zion. We're still fighting. And say, I don't know. I'm not verbalizing this correctly, I don't think, but it was everything I wanted. It was meta on multiple levels, not just, it made statements on the gaming industry, on sequels, on the need for sequels, on caustic, gatekeepers. I mean, it was just like everything, and it was great. I mean, I recognized a lot in it, and I liked how the story went. I liked the fact that nowhere at all in the movie did Neo pick up a gun and shoot anybody. I thought that was kind of interesting, especially, considering his other day job, John Wick. I like the fact that the resolution wasn't, we're going to destroy the machines once and for all. We're going to destroy the Matrix once for all. It was, we're going to help people and make things better. I was like, that was a wonderful way to end it. And I even like the fact that, the commentary on, hey, all along, maybe it was, Trinity that was the one and the person that really did everything. And he's like, my time's over. Now I'm totally fine stepping back and letting her shine. And that, I thought it was great at the end where he's like standing in the background petting a cat while she's messing up Neil Patrick Harris. I thought it was pretty great. And I don't know. There was a lot I liked about this. I will watch it multiple times. I will enjoy watching it as a 4-movie set. I even watched the other 3 leading up to this, and I just thought it was a great continuation of the story. But it wasn't just a straight sequel. It wasn't a reboot. It was kind of a combination of all that, and it worked well. So anyway, see, I talked more than you did.
No, that was good. That's good. And I think that my feeling has always been that the first Matrix movie was, in my eyes, a complete story. You didn't need to even go to number 2. And so from that moment on, it was just, we need to make 2 more of these so we can get money. Now, granted, they were high quality and well made, and I enjoyed them, but not as much as the first one. The first one is still the sort of benchmark. But I do agree with you that it was nice to see that Neo didn't need to shoot anybody and was just like pushing the bullets away and defending her. But I think the idea was that it was never just Neo as the one. There is no one. It's the 2, right? It's like they're stronger together than they ever were apart. And if you go back and look at the movies, which I know you did, and so did I, that has been the case throughout the entire series before this, is that they were always, needed each other to make this work out. Because she saves him at one point. And and he saves her. They both save each other. He's like, now, she's like, now get up off, get back to work, basically. And yeah, I think that again, like you said, the idea that Neo doesn't use a gun, nobody does except the bad guys. And that was cool. And he's obviously evolving as a character in this new version of the Matrix where he doesn't need guns. and because he's got like superpowers now. It's just, yeah, there was a lot of things that I liked about it. It's just, I can't shake the fact that, or the idea that, and maybe this is just me being cynical as I get older. It's like, it just seemed like, well, we're going to do this anyway. So let's just do it. I don't really didn't do it just for the money, but it seemed like an idea of trying to go for some cash and saying that they understand the fact that they're, it's all meta or whatever. And it's like, we're just exploiting this thing, saying that they understand that, and then still doing it doesn't necessarily, make it that it's okay to do it necessarily. But I said necessarily twice, but that's okay. So that's what I mean by the, like, the sort of middle of the movie kind of fell flat for me, but I did like the setup, and I did like, Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss, and there was definitely some things that I liked about it. But I thought the fights were, I don't know, the fights didn't really do that much for me. They were poorly staged. I know it's not about that, but it is an action movie, so the action should be good, and I didn't like much of it.
See, I don't think it was written that way, because the two people, and their names escape me now, that Lana Wachowski wrote the movie with, they have done some TV and movie things, but they're first and foremost science fiction authors. Mm-hmm. And I thought that, to me, the story and the ideas and what they were going for benefited from that. And the fact that it seemed to me they didn't intend to go out and make a big sci-fi action movie. They wanted to tell a more intimate love story, but also a kind of metaphysical sci-fi story. And I think they nailed that, and I think it worked great. And again, to me, I think I've always said that if you're going to do a continuation of a story or a sequel, the ones I like the best are the ones that do something different with the material or with the characters and things like that. And I felt that this ticked off all the boxes that I wanted in a sequel to this, because it's like, you can't, to me, it's like, well, I guess you could just keep going bigger and more extravagant, which I felt they did with the two Matrix sequels, culminating in the huge machine war and big fight with Zion and all this kind of stuff. But I'm like, I want to see you go the other way. I'm more interested in the characters, not necessarily in big explosions and big fights and stuff like that. And that's like fine. I said, they gave me that with this, and I was like, this is really cool. This gives me a lot to think about, and I want to watch it more times to pick up on the things I missed and to really get into the meat of it. So there you go.
Like I said, that's great. And if you're going to do that, then do it. And I think they did try to do that some extent, and they succeeded to some degree too. But if you're going to have action in your movie, it should be well staged and interesting. I just thought it was poorly done, and so, which is unusual for a Matrix movie, because, as you said, I don't have my fights have to be big. And you're right, they had the big Zion fight and whatever and all that. They don't have to be giant explosions. Like I think about the first John Wick movie, that's a pretty contained, sort of intimate action movie, yet it's very well done and very well staged. But the action was sort of, I don't know, lifeless, and I thought poorly directed in a lot of ways. But that's fine. You know what? If it wasn't supposed to be that, that's fine. But at least do a good job with it while you're disdaining it at the same time. Unless that was the point. It's like, this is not.
That's why I think it was kind of the point. It was like, this is what.
Yeah, but it just seems amateurish, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I didn't get that. I thought, I like where they're downplaying that. I don't know.
Okay, well, that's fine. You can disagree.
We should talk about the big part of the movie, though, that I think everyone is glossing over. Oh, yes, of course, Chad.
Oh, Chad. Well,
I like the fact that's Chad Stahelski.
Yeah, it is,
ladies and gentlemen.
It is, everyone. Yes. Which he was probably just working down the street, right? And so, Chad, come down for this part. You can play Carrie-Anne Moss's husband. But yeah, people are like dragging her for like leaving.
Keanu's
stunt double.
He was Keanu's stunt double in the first Matrix movie, and then was stunt coordinator on the other two. Yeah. So
but it's funny though that, like, as soon as she realizes she's not Trinity, or she is Trinity, she's like, "Fuck these kids, I don't care." They're not real anyway. They're in the Matrix.
Well, they weren't, and then she did get to make the statement at the end. That's for using children. It was like, and so I mean, they even make the there's so many statements in this. It's kind of like, oh well, Neil Patrick Harris makes the comment, it used to be easier to handle women or control women, and it's like, so the machine logic is, oh, we'll give her a family and kids. and she'll be content with that. She won't want to do anything else, right? So it was just like, because, society, that's the only kind of agency or power that we give women, is to be, factories for kids, right? And it's like, that's not true. They have
because
brains.
Machines understand. The machines understand that because they have a big factory of people too. So
right, so they're like, oh well, we'll just give her what we have and it'll be fine. And it's
you got to wonder what the machines think about, though. Do they have emotions? Maybe they don't. They just have intelligence, right? So
I think they do at this point. I think Neo helped them with that, but
maybe. I mean, listen, I didn't hate the movie. I thought that it had a lot of strong things about it. And I think that we can make the case that Lana Wachowski's not a dummy, right? I mean, they're very intellectual people, and there's a lot of things going on here. There's layers to this movie that some people aren't getting. But I think the real problem, Joe, is you're just too woke. That's all.
That's it. Yes, I know.
You're too woke.
I'm the problem. I'm the problem.
You're checking your privilege too much, man. I don't know.
The movie's not going to appeal to everyone, and I get that.
Of course
and
not.
Obviously, the reactions are out there. I think there is a lot there for people that want to find it and want to enjoy it. Again, enjoy what you want.
Right.
And I'm not expecting everyone's going to like everything I like. It was a movie that I greatly enjoyed and would put up there with the other 3 Matrix movies, and will watch multiple times when I watch those. And honestly, that's the only opinion I really care about.
Well, exactly, and that's the only. That's really the only one you should care about.
Yeah.
I think that people, if you're talking about the internet, just they're reacting to things that they don't like, because it's not the same. I think you're wrong in some way, that at least for you it's fine because you like things to be improved or changed or whatever. Not everybody likes that. People like sameness,
right?
So they like their Matrix movies served with a side of guns, more guns, and whatever. And they're just it's backlash for some perceived thing, whatever. The sad thing is it's not making a lot of money, which is disappointing.
No, and we'll definitely. I don't think we'll see any more. Well, maybe we'll get like a Matrix series down the road, or we'll get some more movies. But I think
I don't know that Keanu will
probably
do another one, except to appear as like some Obi-Wan Kenobi like spiritual guru or something for somebody. But
he'll be a green Force hologram instead of a blue one.
There you go. So I think that it'll be examined in the future, and I think that like some things that people don't like when they first come out. Wow, I've said like a lot too. They will be grown. Oh God, come on, Chris. People will grow to appreciate it over time. It's a tough sentence. It's a tough sentence to get. English is hard, folks. People will grow to appreciate it. It'll get more interesting as it goes on. Like many things that weren't popular when they first came out. It's hard to go back and take something like the first Matrix film, which was groundbreaking at the time in many ways. It was a sci-fi action movie with brains, and cool. I mean, like it or not, bullet time, right? And so it's hard to top that. And they did a really good job, I think, expanding on that in the sequels. And those tell a complete story. But she says it at the end. Will we see Neo again? Yeah, I think we will, and we did. And will we see Neo again? I don't think so. But
no,
maybe that's okay. I don't know.
I mean, it's kind of like the very first Star Wars movie, right? That was a complete story. There didn't need to be sequels to that. It's debatable whether he had 12 movies planned and at one point, but
whatever. It's all debatable.
But and I would argue too that there are very few movies that I hate saying need, because nobody needs a movie. Nobody needs.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. It's like this is how it's like nobody needs anything.
Well, nobody.
It's nice to see this story continue, right? So
it's like, well, nobody asked for this. It's like, well, you don't. Yeah, it's not like you go every week and fill out a form of what movies you want, right? I mean,
they do. It's called the internet,
Well, yeah, but so I think you know what I'm saying. But so
I know what you're saying.
There are very few movies that need sequels to them, but there are a lot of movies that I'm glad did get sequels to them. And as I've said, the ones that I've appreciated are things that do something different. Like, I don't think I would be that thrilled with the original Star Wars trilogy if Empire hadn't been drastically different from the first one. That's the reason why I'm not that hip on Return of the Jedi, because I'm like, well, it's just basically the first movie again. It's like, oh wow, look, surprise! There's another Death Star. We got to go blow it up, right? So,
and then of course Force Awakens. Look, another Death Star. Wait, what?
Right. So those are the but again, there are like, if somebody had said, okay, if there was just the first Matrix movie and never any other movies, it was enough of a thrill and enough world building that I would always wonder what else happened in that universe. I want to see what happens next. I'm one of those that so at the end of Breakfast Club, I wanted to, excuse me. I wanted a coda on Breakfast Club that what happened when they went back to school. I want to see 10 minutes of that. Do they say hello in the hall, or do they just go back to the way they were and ignore each other, or is there knowing looks? I'm the ones that wants the movies that I really love. It's I want to see that what next part. And there's certain ones, probably like Breakfast Club, where I don't need that spelled out for me. I'll always wonder, and I always will have wanted to see that, but I shouldn't. But then there's other movies like Matrix. I'm glad we got to see Zion. I'm glad we got to see how the society works and what's going on. So, I think that's a sign of a good movie if it makes you wonder what happens next. Do we always need to see that? Maybe not, but sometimes it's a good thing.
Well, that's a basic thing about showbiz is that they've always said always leave them wanting more, right?
Right.
So if you can tell a complete story, but then people are like, wow, what happens later? How do these characters, that's great. That means you've done your job. You've made compelling characters that people can identify with and like enough to want to see more of them, which is why you get sequels. I mean, it's about money too, but yeah.
If the more is okay, we're going to tell you the first story again, just different bad guys. Then it's well, then you shouldn't have bothered. Give me a different story in that universe. Show me something new.
But people like that too. It's people like
no, they do like
familiarity.
Seeing the same. Yes, yes, exactly.
But you're right about that's funny you say that. But it's right. You're right about Star Wars and Empire. Empire is a different story, a different. I mean, it is a continuation in some ways, but it's a different kind of movie. It's so much, and I hate to use the word better, but it's so much better than Star Wars, which I still will never call A New Hope, but it's so much better than that. I think largely because George had as little to do with that one as any of the movies. So not that he's a terrible person. Love George Lucas. Thank you for creating Star Wars.
He's great for ideas.
He's great for ideas. He's not great for execution, as you can tell.
Yes.
Although you can make the case that American Graffiti is still a great movie, even though George directed that. But that I think that had a lot to do with the writers and a lot to do with Francis Ford Coppola, who also was extremely helpful with that. But that or Marshall Lucas saving in the editing maybe, but but there's very few times when you absolutely I need to see what happens, and it's but I'd be fine if they don't show me.
Right.
It's funny. It's also funny you mentioned Breakfast Club. I always imagined that they just went back to the same cliques.
I think so too, but I would have liked to.
For a minute, there was some kind of hey in the hallway, but then they were all pigeonholed and they couldn't do anything about it. That was the only time they felt free enough to be themselves. They couldn't in the halls. But anyway, I don't think Claire and Bender ended up together.
Exactly,
or maybe.
And that's been kind of my argument for Star Trek movies because I think J.J. Abrams finally got it. But to me, all the previous Star Trek movies felt just two-part episodes. It's no, don't give me. You're in theaters now. You're on the widescreen. Don't just give me a Star Trek, a overly long Star Trek episode. Do something.
Don't you dare say anything bad about Wrath of Khan, man.
Well, no. See, that did something different though, and something unexpected.
Yeah.
So. But anyway, that's just me, and I know a lot of people. They're I want to see. They get really caught up in the story, and they really enjoy and love the movie or the TV show, and they're I want to see that again. I want to experience that again. I want to feel that again, and I get it. That's just not me, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there's plenty of sequels too that are just retellings of the first movie that are probably done well and that people love. So
you're talking about well, I didn't need to see these kind of things. Why did this movie need to be made? And I thought that about Rogue One, oddly enough. I'm why do I care? I mean, yes, I know that they got the plans with the Death Star, and that's the important thing. But I think Rogue One was awesome.
It's really good.
Yeah, and it turned out to be great. And so that was a story I didn't know that I needed, and yet it was a great story. You know, obviously it's a bummer at the end, but
Sure.
but that will never have a sequel, I guess. And so I guess
But that was a Star Wars movie. Well, they're having a prequel to it.
I guess you can make the case that it is that Star Wars was a sequel, right? So,
yeah.
but yeah, that was a movie that I didn't know I needed, and I did enjoy it. Would I have lived my entire life and been fine without it? Sure. And that kind of leads us, I think, into our next point of discussion about the book of Boba Fett, which we should touch on a little bit. Although we'll get to this more, I'm sure, as it has more episodes, because the first episode just premiered by the time this episode comes out. But we watched it, and it's one of those things where I've always thought, and I'm sure you would agree, that Boba Fett was a cool character who kind of got thrown away for a gag in a way.
Yes.
And didn't get a very good ending. And maybe that didn't matter, but I've always sort of in my mind, in my own headcanon, figured out how he'd escaped, figured out that he was still alive.
Sure.
And he does appear in I think, at least one novel. And so that shows
a few novels, yeah.
But that also showed, I think, how he could have survived. But again, is the Star Wars books canon? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But I obviously, we watched the show, and I was very excited about it. In fact, this is the first, I think, Disney Plus show I stayed up until midnight or whatever to watch.
Wow.
Yeah, well, it's really midnight Pacific, so it's 2 a.m. for me.
Yeah, jeez.
I know, yeah. And I'm not disappointed that I did it. And there were a lot of things that I liked about it, but I was not as blown away as I thought I would be. If that makes sense.
I agree with that. So here's my take on Boba Fett.
Wait,
Boba
agree?
Fett to me,
good.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, we're done then. Okay,
Boba Fett to me is like Wolverine and a lot of characters like that. They work best to me as like recurring characters. They don't, once you put the focus on them and strip away the mystery and say, well, here's all their origin, here's everything spelled out. It's like, well, they're just like every other character, or to me, they don't become that interesting. The reason why Wolverine and Boba Fett became so huge is because we saw very little of them, right? And it's like, oh, I really want to know more about this. And it's like, yeah, you really don't, but we'll continue to tease you with them. Not necessarily so much with Boba Fett, but with Wolverine in the comics. But now Wolverine is like, he's in the Avengers, he's in the X-Men, he's got like 3 solo series, he's got 2 mini-series, and it's like, and he's had like a series of mini-series that are, here's his complete origin. And it's like, well, then he's not interesting anymore. And it kind of, I kind of feel that way with Boba Fett. It's like you said, everybody has like, oh, I know how he escaped the Sarlacc pit. We don't, did we need that spelled out for us? I don't know. It was okay. I'm going to continue to watch the series and see what happens. But honestly, I'm more interested in Ming-Na's character and what interactions he has with the crime, the crime underworld and stuff like that. I'm more interested in exploring that, which apparently we will. So it's like, it's kind of one of those things, if you remove Boba Fett from this and add a different character, or just make it about Fennec Shand deciding to go and take over Jabba's thing, does it make it a worse show or a better show? And I'm on the fence about that.
Well, it makes it a show that never gets made, unfortunately. So,
well, yeah.
The reason this got made is they decided to bring Boba Fett back in The Mandalorian, and now he gets his own show.
I think that if they kept him as somebody who showed up every once in a while in The Mandalorian, I think that would have been better. Maybe
you're right, and maybe that's what they'll do after this run. But they're not, obviously Jon Favreau feels strongly about it, and Dave Filoni obviously feels strongly about it enough to create a show where Boba Fett comes back. But you're right; it's like you could take almost anyone and stick him in I'm going to become a member of because he's not bounty hunting anymore and he's not doing anything. So it's like, why even have it be Boba Fett at all if he's not going to go back to his old life and explore that maybe? I think The Mandalorian worked so well because it was a character we'd never seen before, and there was mystery. He never takes his helmet off. It's like this whole mythology of the Mandalorians and Mandalore and all this other stuff. And he was an interesting character because of the mystery. You're right. And I think that's one of the ways they addressed it. And this is just, hey, everyone loves Boba Fett, right? So we're going to do a show about how much everyone loves Boba Fett. And and that's cool. And I love Boba Fett. Everyone does. I've got a Boba Fett doll on my desk right here. You can't see it, but it's right there. I don't say doll. It's an action figure, damn it. because I'm a boy. I don't have dolls anyway.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
Doll.
It's a doll. It's a big one too. But that's not the point. The point is that Favreau obviously feels strongly about this, as we all did, because we're all about the same age as Jon Favreau, I suppose, or close to it.
Yeah.
It's like, what a fucking bummer. Why would you create a cool character and fucking kill him in a Starlight pit? It's for a comic bit.
As a joke.
Joke. It's stupid. And people hated that, and they've been bitter about it this entire time.
for 30, 40
years. Like, fuck this. I'm in a position of power now. I'm going to make a show that will bring back this character. And so they did. And you know what? Good for them, and good for Tamara Morrison, by the way. Great for him.
Sure.
Congratulations on getting another show and getting to be the
I will continue to watch it. I'm going to watch the whole season.
I think there's enough there for me that it's interesting, and I think they have. I think Tamara Morrison is a great supporting character. I don't know that he's the lead material, and this is no slight to the man at all. He's not. No. He's a competent actor, but the dynamicness that made him like super interesting as an actor back in the day is kind of lost in a way, because I don't know what he's exactly playing. And I also blame a little bit the director. I'm not a huge Robert Rodriguez fan. Sorry, everybody. I think the episode was poorly directed, and I feel like he kind of phoned it in a way, like we were talking about before the show.
He does, yeah. I was really surprised by that.
And let's be honest. I mean, Boba Fett is, I don't know how long he was in the Sarlacc pit, but he's not supposed to be 60-something years old, for one thing.
Right.
So, and again, I'm going back to The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian works so well because of the mystery about who's behind the helmet. But Boba Fett doesn't care. He just takes his helmet off all the time. So maybe leave the helmet on a little bit. And I'm also not used to seeing his armor being so shiny. That's weird to me.
Well, if you never have him take his helmet off, though, it's just like another Mandalorian show. Right?
Oh, no, I know. It is called the Book of Boba Fett, not the Book of Random Dude in a helmet. I got that. Yes. I get it. But then, like you said, why? I would have actually been interested in a Fennec Shan show, like where Ming-Na Wen just takes over everything, because she's badass and I think she's awesome. I would have, and maybe that's what they're setting up. Maybe they realize fanboys won't respond to that because it's too whatever. But if we set up the fact that she's an equal for Boba and she takes over from him, when he's like, fuck this. I don't want to be a bureaucrat. I want to go crack some skulls. He just takes off and goes back to that bounty hunter life. And she continues on, as the leader is saying, well, you don't want me to call the boss, do you? But she's basically the de facto leader, or she just takes over and decides she doesn't want to be his, second in command anymore. I don't know where they're going to take the show. I mean, obviously there's factions that don't want him to be in charge. So there's going to be some fights and whatnot. And Jennifer Beal shows up, which I thought was weird, but it's like random cameos of people. Will you see these characters?
Twi'lek?
It's like, will you see these people again? I don't know, maybe. Well, that's what Mandalorian did too. They have like people just show up and somewhat well-known people, and they just disappear. And you never see them again. But then sometimes they show up. Will Mandalorian show up in Boba Fett? I don't know, maybe. But I guess my nostalgia and my love for the character in some ways, because I just have always had a sort of negative reaction to Return of the Jedi in some ways. And this in particular really bothered me as a kid. And so that's one reason, obviously, I'm going to watch it. But I think the character was cool. But he was cool because I didn't know everything about him. So maybe I don't want to know everything about him.
I wonder if they should have got right into the action up front and maybe spread out him escaping from, I don't know,
that would have been I would have done that would have been episode 2. Episode 1 is him doing his thing, because you already saw him in The Mandalorian, but they had to, I hate to say it, they had to establish him as a character because people might have not seen The Mandalorian. That whole thing was just, if you're new to Star Wars, here's a character that you've probably never heard of.
It just seemed, and I hate being the guy that say this, but it seemed to kind of throw the pacing of the episode off. It's like, we're going to front heavy load you with these flashbacks, and then, also we need to establish the fact that he's doing this in the present day, quote unquote, and then give you something to give you an action sequence, and then give you something to make you want to come back next week. And it just seemed like it wasn't put together well.
Well, I feel like that was a studio note, probably. It's like, well, you need to show who this character is before you get into it. Yeah. I would have done exactly what you just said. I would have had him start off already doing his thing, being in charge, And then in episode 2, make that how did I? So, boss, how did you escape the Sarlacc pit? Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you the story. It's a funny story.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I heard you were in a Sarlacc. How was that? Well, it was kind of fucked, if you want to know the truth. So
or maybe save that to even later in the season. Yeah. And like you said, the whole thing is like, weren't you eaten by a Sarlacc? It's like, that's,
Well, it's like the whole thing with Snake Plissken. I heard you'd be bigger, or whatever. I heard you were dead.
I thought you. Yeah, I heard you were dead.
I thought you were dead. Well, that someone should say that would have made more sense. Someone should have said, Boba Fett, I thought you were dead. No, I'm not dead. I was just, digested for a bit. I'm fine. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what voice I'm doing there, but anyway, I would have. Yeah, but I'm sure that was like Disney Plus is like, or Disney saying, you know what, man, not everybody knows this stuff, so you gotta make it for the dumb people.
And honestly, all you had to do was have them escape from the Sarlacc. The whole thing with the sand people and all that, I was like, why are we seeing all this? I don't understand. And maybe it's like, oh, we want to show you that Boba Fett's a badass. And it's like, again, maybe
it's for people who've never seen The Mandalorian. That's
have snippets of that throughout the season and stuff, instead of like, so first of all, the first episode is only going to be like 30 minutes, 35 minutes. And we're going to spend half that time or 2/3 of that time showing you stuff that happened in the past. And then try to make you care about what's going on in the I don't know. It just seemed...
they also had to humanize him more. That shows him being a person who cares about other people, right?
Well, my wife made the comment. She's like, I always had in my head that Boba Fett was the bad guy. He was a villain, and now through all of that, she's like, now I actually look at him as a sympathetic character, and it's like, maybe that was the point, and it worked, right?
Well, so I don't know if he has to be sympathetic, though. I mean, Tony Soprano is not a sympathetic character, but he was a huge hit. I think you can have anti-heroes. I think you can have people.
It's a Disney show, though. You got to have them.
Questionable morality and whatever. I mean, I guess that's true. I mean, you can't have Han Solo shoot people first, but
right.
You just, he can be. And I'm sure you're absolutely right, by the way, that since it's a Disney Plus show, that he had to be humanized and shown to care and be a nice guy, get rehabilitated. Fennec Shand could be a bad guy, although she's not that bad anymore either. So, and of course, you give the Mandalorian Grogu or Yoda, and he's just
exactly
he cares about kids now, even though But I never considered Boba Fett as a bad guy. I guess even back then, I always figured he's a bounty hunter. His job is to bring back people. For money. He works for money. He's a money guy.
He's a hardworking dude.
He's a mercenary. And he has no side. He doesn't wear a uniform. He has no allegiances except to cash. And so he's not a great person, maybe, but he did see his father get beheaded by the Jedi, so he probably has some anger about that. Or his quote unquote father, I guess. Which was really which was really him, oddly enough. But folks.
Yeah, you brought up Han Solo, which
I did.
Kind of his Solo movie, kind of brings home the point of what I was saying earlier. It's like did we need to see Han Solo make the Kessel Run? Did we need to see the game that he played where he won the Millennium Falcon? No. I don't think we need to see any of that.
Did we need to have the scene where he says, "What's your last name?" I'm alone. Solo.
Right. We didn't. It was crazy. Like, show me, have a Han Solo movie of young Han Solo doing Han Solo stuff, but we don't need to have an origin movie that within 2 hours you tick off every single box of everything we've ever known about Han Solo and show it to us. It's like, it's already been told. It's a legend. It reminds me of quite a few years ago when Stephen Moffat took over Doctor Who, and this is related. I was on an interview panel with him, and the big thing in Doctor Who at the time was the Time War, and he's like, "Hey, if you're ever going to show the Time War," and he goes, "No, it's a mythic thing. You can never do it justice." He goes, "It's kind of like Star Wars. For Star Wars, for all these years we heard about, the Clone Wars this, the Clone Wars, and everyone's like, oh, what's that about?" And then they finally showed us the Clone Wars over 3 movies, and it ended up being just a bunch of meetings. He's like, so, you build up these mythic things and you make these things legend in a story, and you can never, in my mind, never show them in a way that gives them justice. They're better just thought about instead of like, well, here it is. It's like, well, that was boring. Okay. So what's the big deal about that? I mean, like the Kessel Run, they never even really in the Solo movie made it that big a deal. I mean, they kind of did, but not to the extent of he would still be talking about it and it would still be legendary decades later, right? So it was
I was assumed he was just bullshitting about that anyway.
Right, exactly.
To get jobs. But I think you made a funny point about the 3 Star Wars movies. There's just a bunch of meanings. Like this movie could have been an email, right? Is what you're saying?
Right, exactly. The Clone Wars could have been an email. Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. And that was just George trying to, I don't know, self-flagellate himself. I don't know.
So like Boba Fett, we didn't need to necessarily see him get himself out of the Sarlacc pit and go through trials and tribulations with the Sand People. That could have been either in dialogue or left to people's imaginations, like has been.
That
for
was absolutely
years.
For people who've never seen the Mandalorian.
No, I know. I understand.
It's a necessary device to introduce the character and also to frame him in a different way, right? He's not.
Yes.
It's not the character. It's not the Boba Fett It's the new, improved Boba Fett who's not a total dickhead. I'm not going to rule through fear and intimidation. I'm going to rule through whatever kindness.
But then that gets to, did we need
this show?
Right.
No, no, but that's okay.
I'll watch it though.
Yeah, I'm watching it, and I trust that Favreau and Filoni have a plan because they've done a really good job, I think, so far. And I think that this was maybe yes, we have to do this episode to get this show going, but maybe we can explore some new territory and make it more interesting and worth your time. Now we can do that later, after this first episode. I said now and later. So maybe they're going to redeem it more. The first episode was kind of weak, I thought. And, some people love it, and that's fine. And you know what? If you love it, you love what you want to love.
Absolutely. I know there's a lot of people that loved it, and that's great.
A lot of people I talked to, friends of mine, are like, oh my God, Boba Fett's amazing. I'm like, well, yeah, it was okay. And I'm not trying to be cynical. I'm really not. I wanted to love it. And I love Spider-Man, No Way Home. I thought that was awesome. And I'm sort of neutral on the Matrix, and I was sort of neutral on a lot of things, but I really wanted this to knock it out of the park, and they did an okay job. But I'm not going to give up on it. I'm always going to watch it.
No, like you, I trust them that by the time we get to the final episode, maybe like that was great. Yeah, it started out a little weak, but then in the context of the whole story and all the episodes, be like, oh, I totally understand now why they needed to do that, and it actually works if you watch it all at once. So I'm not saying like, oh, total misfire and it should be canceled and I'm not going to watch the rest. Not at all. It's just, again, it's not, it sort of like with the Obi-Wan show. I sort of expect the first episode of Obi-Wan is going to be like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. This story I want to see. I still don't think I care about what he did in the desert for 18 years or whatever. But again, I don't know the story they're going to tell. And the more I actually hear about it, it's like, oh, Hayden Christensen's going to be as Darth Vader. And I'm like, wow, how's that going to work? I'm mildly interested. So I definitely will watch that. So again, we don't need any of these stories, but hey, why not?
Well, I try to be cynical about, it's just a cash grab, because I don't think that, at least in the case of Filoni and Favreau, I mean, they don't need the money. Favreau definitely doesn't need money. I mean, he's got that Iron Man fuck you money, but it's just, I just made that up. I thought it was funny. I think this was I think they were passionate about what happened to Boba Fett. I think they were just, I really think it was as simple as Favreau was like, God damn you, George Lucas. And he's been holding a grudge since 1984. And so whenever Return of the Jedi came out, I think it was 84. And so he just wanted to redeem the character. 83. Okay. And he just wanted to redeem the character and bring it back for fans and for himself. But, it's like one of those things where we talked about before. It's like people are making shows kind of for themselves in a way. It's like, I want to make a show that I want to see. So this is a show that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni wanted to see. And so I will give them the benefit of the doubt, since I enjoyed The Mandalorian so much.
Absolutely.
And Clone Wars and everything. And I will give them the benefit of the doubt and go with it. And hope that they will get to tell the story they actually want to tell, and not just the story that Disney wants to rehabilitate the character to sell toys. So
I don't think it's a cash grab. I don't think so. Not on their part. I think it's like, hey, what stories do you guys want to tell? And I bet there's a bunch of other stuff they're like, hey, what about this? And they're, maybe that's not going to work. Which is why I think they had Rosario Dawson play Ahsoka. It's like, and now they have an Ahsoka series because to me, there's obviously stuff with the character that David Filoni wants to still write about and still show. And I think,
kind of feel
like you said with Boba Fett and Favreau, it's like, no,
I feel like they got to get Hayden Christensen under contract with Obi-Wan so they can get him in the Ahsoka Tano show because
probably
he's her master at some point,
right?
And so if you watch Clone Wars, and so it's like he's probably going to appear in multiple things because why not?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know how he's going to work out with Obi-Wan Kenobi, but I love Ewan McGregor. I thought he did a great job as Obi-Wan, and I will watch the Obi-Wan show because I'm a nerd for Star Wars still, yes. And I maybe part of it. I don't know if this is a thing, but I'm just getting Star Wars fatigue a little bit, and I'm not like done with Star Wars, obviously, but there's a lot of stuff about it. And there's a lot of hate in the Star Wars fandom for different things, and just the last 3 movies didn't blow me away as much as I was hoping, and whatever.
That's kind of what I was talking about recently about coming to the realization that there are large parts of Star Wars that are just not for me. And that's okay. There are parts of it that I really like, but I don't have to love all of it to enjoy the parts of it that I do. And it's okay if something new. I mean, if it turns out that it's like, you know what, the Boba Fett show's not really doing it for me. I don't see that as like a failure on anyone's part. It's just not to my particular tastes in story, maybe. And that's okay. And if the same thing happens with Obi-Wan, it'd be like, nah, I don't regret seeing it because, I'm still kind of a Star Wars nerd. But there are parts of it that I will probably never watch again. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And there's parts of it I watch. I mean, Empire, I watch all the time still. And it's such a great movie and a great Star Wars movie. But I think it's okay to not, there's the old thing, if you ever thought, hey, this character looks really cool and I like this one movie or this one episode, you're a fan of that thing. There is no such thing as like a gauntlet to pass to be considered a fan. If you like something, you're a fan of it. And everyone's going to like things and be fans of things to different degrees. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't like you said, how can you like Force Awakens and call yourself a Star Wars fan? It's because fuck you. That's why.
Wow, that's intense. All right.
Right? It's like,
what do you really think?
It's like,
no, so I get it. We talked.
You don't have to love all of it, and they shouldn't make everything to appeal to the true fans or everybody. You're gonna, Ewoks cartoon. I don't care about that. I'm never gonna watch that. But there are kids that grew up going, this is the best thing ever, right? And there's nothing wrong with that.
Or
and
Clone Star Wars fans. Is their first entrance into Star Wars or whatever.
They're Star Wars fans.
Yeah,
as much as anyone else. So
I think it's just, as we've discussed many times, it's mostly like older fans who was like, I was in the Star Wars before you. And it's like, gatekeeping is whatever.
Yeah.
They claim ownership of these things in their own minds, and if you don't like something the way they like it, then you're wrong and whatever. And I don't know if it's just because that's what social media sort of elevates the extreme opinions, because I'm sure most people, I would imagine most reasonable people are like, yeah, Star Wars is cool. I'm fans of Star Wars, and I, like you said, you like some of it and some other things you don't like. Like, I'm not a huge fan of Clone Wars, but I could still watch the original films, and I don't like the prequels that much or the sequels that much, or I like the original trilogy. And and there's some things I liked Mandalorian, but I wasn't exactly thrilled with with the last J.J. Abrams movies or whatever. And you can like different things. And I haven't read a lot of the Star Wars novels, but I've read some of the Chuck Wendig ones, which I really liked. And there's like, you can pick and choose parts of things that you like. You don't have to like everything. Yeah, so I totally agree with that. And I think that's the best way to approach modern fandom, to just find the things that you feel strongly about and enjoy those things, and then not worry about the rest of it. And don't be the person who tells other people that they're wrong, because no one likes that person.
Exactly.
Don't be a dick, I guess is what it comes down to.
Yes.
So I Boba Fett is a cool character, and I've always been a fan since the beginning. But again, I think a lot of that is just because of his treatment in the movie. And I'm happy to see him get a show. I'm happy to see Ming-Na Wen get another show, and Tamara Morrison and Filoni and and Favreau and whatever, and good for them and good for Star Wars fandom. The more stuff that comes out is still good because some of the best stuff will rise to the top and some of the other stuff won't. But the fact that we're still talking about Star Wars since 1977 is pretty impressive.
So, and I will say right now that there is something, either a show or a movie about Star Wars that we're going to rave about and love that hasn't even been made yet, because that's just seems to be the nature of the franchise. As they bring in new voices, they bring in new perspectives, and some of the things work for some people, some of them don't. But I would say that there's something about Star Wars we're going to love that hasn't even been thought of yet. So
well, that's it. Yeah, the enduring popularity of this franchise, and you can say Star Trek too, because Star Trek actually came along before Star Wars.
Absolutely.
We're still talking about Star Trek today too, which is amazing. So I think that they will last a long time, and you're not going to like everything, but the fact that they keep making stuff is cool, and it keeps coming up, and some of it's, like you said, some of it's good, some of it's not, but that's just opinion. And
it's just your opinion, man.
Like your opinion, man. So yeah, we didn't even talk about disco at all. The last couple of episodes, we get a chance to jump on that, and the sort of surprise about Tilly leaving the show for a while, but that's fine.
I think we need to do a Discovery Expanse catch up probably here soon.
Oh yeah, The Expanse is dope. I love that show. Yeah, we haven't talked about the Expanse either, but we'll have to get to that. But there's so many other things that happened over the sort of over this period of time since we did the Ultimate Picks show. So I don't even think we need to do picks this week because we did it all before.
We did. Yeah, the end of this year was packed with a lot of stuff. So,
yeah, although it won't be the same next year because they're not going to do day and date, for Warner Brothers stuff, I'm sure.
No.
Anymore. Although that was pretty cool. But we're really lucky that we live in a time where we're getting a lot of cool sci-fi and fantasy stuff, and we're just getting a lot of content for nerds. I mean, there's shows about Dungeons and Dragons, for God's sakes, where people play D&D on TV, so that's pretty cool.
Right, exactly. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? You used to play in your basement, and people thought you were a fucking nerd for playing and ridiculed you. I'm not bitter though. I'm fine. Didn't affect me at all. I'm fine. But yeah, it's a great time to be a nerd, and it's a great time to just enjoy things and not take it too seriously. And I think that people right now maybe are just more stressed than they have been in a long time. So maybe that's part of it too. There's just, there's a lot of things going on in the world, which we don't need to get into because everyone knows. But if you're watching a show and it makes you happy and it gives you some joy in these times, then fucking take it, run with it, I say. So,
there's just so much out there that I don't see the need to devote your life to hating on something, even if it's something you previously enjoyed that isn't going the way you want. Go explore and find something new. And then, again, because of the enduring popularity and continuation of Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who, or whatever, come back to it later and see if it's more your cup of tea then. Maybe so, right? Yeah, maybe not. Exactly. And that's okay. Yeah. It doesn't detract from the things and parts of it that you love.
It's all okay. Everything's going to be okay.
Yep.
All right. So find the Flickcast at Stitcher and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and iHeartRadio and pretty much everywhere you can find podcasts. You can find Joe and I on the socials. He's at What Joe Writes. I am at Chris Yu, and also on Instagram, I am at UlrichPicks. And of course, the Flickcast is at TheFlickcast. And we have our website, theflickcast.com, and we have a Patreon, patreon.com/theflickcast. If you want to throw the show a couple bucks. We've been getting a couple more ratings. Thank you. They're not 5 stars, so I'm not that happy about it. No, I'm kidding. Just kidding.
You will be
found and held accountable.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
But that's fine. No, it's cool. I don't mind. I welcome criticism of any kind, frankly, but constructive criticism. What could we do better in the new year? What could we do differently? We're going to have more guests coming back, and we're going to have, we're going to try to mix things up a little bit, and we're going to hopefully, not reinvent the show, but just, keep it relevant and whatever. But it's not going to change completely because at the end of the day, it's about two nerds just talking about shit, which I think is fun.
Pretty much. Yep.
Yeah. And that, Joe and I, not other nerds.
I see. You meant us. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about stuff. I'll have to get better at talking at some point, but
well, that's overrated.
Anyway, this will end up being technically the first episode of 2022 or 2022. I mean, I guess 2022 is the same thing. So that's cool. I didn't realize that last episode was going to be the last episode of 2021. Otherwise, I might have said something about that. But the show was already super long, so I guess that's fine.
Yeah.
So have a happy and prosperous 2022, and enjoy the things you enjoy, and just be kind to each other, and try not to be a dick about stuff. So that's kind of like good advice for every day, I think.
And we'll be here, so
Yeah, exactly.
For better or for worse.
For better or worse. All right. So for Joe Dilworth, I'm Chris Ulrich. That was the Flickcast. Thanks so much for listening.